Thank you very much, Paul. Okay, so today is the 23rd of October. For those of you who are paying attention, especially to the field of cosmogony, or read Pharyngula, you'll know that today marks a very important date. Yes, according to Bishop Usher, today is the Earth's birthday. Indeed, the birthday of the entire cosmos. Today, the Earth turns 6013. Happy birthday, Earth! Also, as Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman pointed out, the Earth is a Libra. Have any of you heard of the Monty Hall problem? Yes? A couple of you? Yeah? It is fascinating. It's based on the television show Let's Make a Deal, and it goes something like this. You're on Let's Make a Deal, and Monty Hall has offered you a chance to win big. You're asked to select one of 3 doors. Behind one of the doors is a fabulous new car, but behind the other 2 are hilarious gag gifts that nobody would ever want. You point your finger toward one of the doors, trembling with excitement. Monty Hall smiles, and with a twinkle in his eye, he opens a different door, revealing a goat. Then, Monty Hall gives you a choice. You can either keep what's behind the door that you initially picked, or you can pick the 3rd unrevealed door. And the question is this: should you stay with your initial choice, or should you switch? Now, I've heard that even mathematicians argue about this one, because the solution is so contrary to common sense. But that's the problem. Common sense only gets us so far, right? You've probably heard it said that common sense is neither common nor sensible. So, it's great for things like determining whether your brothers split the piece of pie in half evenly or fairly. It's good for figuring out how far away grandma's house is and how long it'll take you to get there. But try using common sense to ascertain the size and shape of the Earth, the motions of the planets, the age of the universe, the origin of life, the causes of and cures for disease, or even the solution to a fairly simple logic puzzle or math problem. And it can fail fairly spectacularly. It's often very wrong or very useless. In fact, I would wager that the entire scientific enterprise is built upon moving beyond common sense. I really enjoy figuring things out. I love to learn something new. Our species thrives on innovation. That seems to be our niche. Yes, I'm pandering here. Very cute kitten. Have you ever heard the old proverb, curiosity killed the cat? I hate that saying. When I was a kid, I asked a lot of questions. I imagine that I wasn't alone in this. Anyone have kids? Yeah, I know a couple of you do. They're curious, right? Right. So I ask a lot of questions. I was mostly raised by my father, and he is a really great dad. Sure, he had some strange ideas, but moms and dads and aunts and uncles and brothers and sisters and husbands and wives and children and friends and pretty much anyone who isn't you is going to have some strange ideas, right? You deal with it. Anyway, my dad was a really great dad, but one of the many great qualities that made that really great dad great was the fact that he always, without fail, every time encouraged my curiosity. And if you'll excuse me for saying so, that's really fucking great. If I asked a question, he'd answer it usually, but he'd always come back with another question. He'd ask me something else. He'd get me thinking. He made me think about things, and no question was ever off limits. I think that curiosity is really important, but not everybody agrees with me. Try this quotation on for size. There is another form of temptation, even more fraught with danger. This is the disease of curiosity. It is this which drives us to try and discover the secrets of nature, those secrets which are beyond our understanding, which can avail us nothing, and which man should not wish to learn. Anyone know who said that? Yeah? That wasn't Martin Luther, but I can understand why you'd think so. He had some zingers. That was St. Augustine in his Confessions. And I like that quotation in probably the same way that Professor X likes Magneto, say. That kind of thinking is very dangerous, right? It leaves people dying of plagues and famines. It stifles innovation. It encourages an insular society, closed to new ideas. It discourages free inquiry, and it ultimately can avail us nothing. This isn't about religion, so I'll put this train back on its tracks in a second. But I just did want to share one more thought with you. Julian Baggini expressed this quite well, I think. It is arguable, he said, that humanism has a better grip on life's mysteries than religion. For example, I am genuinely in the dark about how the universe started, whereas plenty of religious believers have that hole in their understanding plugged by their deity. I'd rather not know and admit that I don't know than settle for a non-answer. To me, saying God did it is like saying it's magic. It doesn't actually answer the question. It doesn't give us any information. Okay, that's enough about that. I don't want to get preachy. Nobody likes preachy, right? You know, I briefly considered calling this talk The Disease of Curiosity, but frankly, I thought that was a brilliant idea. Luckily, my lovely wife convinced me that it wasn't. So that way we would have fewer talks at SkeptiCamp that sound like they're about contracting a venereal disease. Okay, let's learn something.
I promise to show you something really cool as long as you promise not to try it at home, okay? Okay. Now, everyone wants to know why my voice sounds higher when I inhale helium.
My simple fact is that helium is 6 times less dense than air, which means sound waves travel through it much faster, which makes my voice sound much higher. Now, the same effect can be achieved in reverse if I inhale something like
sulfur hexafluoride, which is 6 times denser than air. I inhale some of that, and my voice gets really low, although somehow I'm still funny. It's scientific!
Sulfur hexafluoride. Okay. Okay, so what have we learned? I learned that despite being a happily married heterosexual man, I have a huge crush on Adam Savage. I'm the lead developer of a Winnipeg software company, specializing in machine learning applications.
Woo.
As part of my job, I have to interview many prospective full-time, part-time, and co-op employees. I conduct about 20 interviews a year. These people are smart people, and the positions that they're interviewing for are challenging ones. Many are going to be working in one or more programming languages with which they have little or no experience. They'll be working with cutting-edge, expert systems, and quite frankly, they won't be paid very well. For this reason, the interview process that we go through is what can only be called grueling. These people's job will be to figure stuff out. You probably won't be surprised to learn that I prize the ability to solve an interesting, novel problem much higher than I do a knowledge base. If an applicant tells me that he or she has a working knowledge of Scilab, FreeMat, SQL, Perl, and Python, that's great. But it's not going to be a shoo-in. It won't get her a free pass. And so, as a warm-up, I like to ask a few riddles. So, you're presented with 4 cards lying on a table. Each card has a number on one side and a letter on the other. The ones that the 4 cards have the visible faces marked A, B, 2, and 3. Those are the only 4 cards. A, B, 2, and 3. They all have a number on one side, a letter on the other. You're also presented with an hypothesis, and that is, each card that has a vowel on one side has an even number on the other. You have permission to flip 2 cards to figure out what's on the other side of them. If you want to conclusively prove or disprove this hypothesis, which 2 cards do you flip? I'm going to poll the audience here. I'll let you think about that for a moment, though. Remember, the hypothesis is every card with a vowel on one side has an even number on the other. Okay? Which 2 do you flip?
There's only one right answer.
There is only one right answer. There's only one answer that will conclusively prove or disprove the hypothesis, no matter what's on the other side of these 4 cards. So who thinks it's A and B? Hands up. Anyone? 2 and 3? No? A and 2? Hands up. Okay. How about B and 3? Okay. A and 3. B and 2. Nobody. Okay, so it looks like we had a pretty even split between A and 2 and A and 3. Why would we flip over A and 2? I'll come clean with you for a moment. This problem is pulled directly from the pages of John Allen Paulos' Enumeracy, a wonderful and eminently readable book on mathematics, from which I try to plagiarize at least once daily. One of the things this problem does very well is showcase confirmation bias. That is to say, the tendency for us to look for information that confirms what we think, or confirms our hypothesis, rather than looking for information that disconfirms it. While many opted for flipping A and 2, flipping 2 actually adds no more information to the system. Remember that the hypothesis is that each card with a vowel on one side has an even number on the other, not that each card with an even number on one side has a vowel on the other. Right? So, if we flip 2, and it has a vowel on the other side, it conforms to our hypothesis, but doesn't confirm it conclusively. If we flip it, and it has a consonant on the other side, it's not part of the problem space. So regardless of what's on the other side of 2, we're fine. Doesn't matter. If you flip 3, however, and it has a vowel on the other side, that conclusively disconfirms the hypothesis, right? Because it's a card with a vowel on one side that doesn't have an even number on the other. So, that's a tough problem. Anyone remember the infinite improbability drive from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Yeah? The basic idea was that if you could calculate... Oh, question.
How many of the interviewers get it right?
Ooh, that's a good question. Probably, I'd say about 25%. And these are people that we've selected. We don't interview all of the applicants that we get, obviously. We usually interview, it'll vary, but we'll interview about 20% of the applications that we get, sometimes closer to 30. So this is a hard problem. It's really, it's not super easy, although, you know, there are only 6 possible options, right? And a lot of them are obviously wrong. Okay. So the basic idea of the infinite improbability drive is that if you could calculate precisely how improbable it is that you would spontaneously appear somewhere else, presumably due to some Deepak Chopra-esque application of quantum mechanics, that you could use the improbability drive to appear somewhere else. It also had the nasty side effect of causing extremely improbable things to happen all the time. It was a plot contrivance device. So why don't we make something really improbable happen? Let's talk about numbers for a bit. I work with numbers all day, and I love them. They're weird little monsters, though. I asked my computer to generate 2 sequences of pseudo-random numbers. That's 25 numbers that are each between 1 and 10 inclusive. And then I sorted them so that you could easily see the distributions. So this is sequence 1, 25 random numbers. This is sequence 2 of 25 random numbers. And that's the distribution of sequence 1 and the distribution of sequence 2. Which of those 2 sequences looks more random? Anyone? Hands up if you think number 1 looks more random. Number 2? Okay. Equally random? Okay. So nobody really voted for number 1. A couple people voted for number 2, and a bunch of people said they're equally random. Okay. What do you notice about the numbers on the left? Distribution 1.
Your question was which looks more random.
Which looks more random?
Which is more random.
Yes, that's true. That's true. So aesthetically, they look equally random. Okay, good. That's a good point.
Well, I would say aesthetically 2 looks more random, but we know from what you told us about how you derived those numbers that
they are equally random.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good. Okay, so what about distribution 1 there? What do you notice when you look at it? There are no 1s, right? That's weird. There are way too many 3s, and a bunch of the numbers were only selected once. This is it's sort of random, but even. It looks pretty good. So the first thing that jumped out at me was the lack of 1s when I saw that. I was like, wow, No ones. Did I do something wrong? Catch what I just did there? So it's actually no more likely that I would end up with sequence 1 than with sequence 2 than any other number than any other possible sequence, right? And the probability of having a distribution with no ones, it's about 7%. The probability of having a distribution without any of any one of the 10 possible numbers is much higher. I didn't calculate it. I could do that, but I'm doing a talk right now, so I'm a little busy. So 2 minutes, Jesus. Okay.
Well, is Arthur Schaefer actually here now? Or I didn't watch everyone who came in.
So the likelihood that I'd arrive at this sequence is no more or less likely than that I'd get 7 every single time, right? Those are equally unlikely and equally likely. Prior to the numbers being picked, the probability of any number that any number sequence with a distribution of 1s and 2s and 3s, etc., just like this, the probability that I'd arrive at that is about 1 in 200 million. That's really unlikely, right? And the probability of arriving at that specific sequence is something like 1 in 10 septillion. But I had to arrive at some sequence. Afterward, the probability is 1 in 1. It's important to remember that the chances of arriving at any of these sequences are the same. So next time somebody tells you about something really improbable that happened to them, something that had a 1 in a million chance of happening to them, you might have cause to be a little less impressed. Astoundingly improbable things happen all the time, because it would be astoundingly improbable if something improbable didn't happen. You know, of all of the multitude of things that could be happening, it's really improbable that this is what's happening right now. I have to admit something. I lied to you a couple minutes ago when I said that my computer had generated 2 sequences of random numbers. I actually generated distribution 1, sequence 1, randomly. And then I tweaked it. I handcrafted sequence 2 to look a little bit more random. Because no way that this would be the random distribution I get, right? Contrary to our expectations, randomness can actually be quite clumpy. For those of you who are interested, I calculated the probability of arriving at that numeric distribution binomially. So if you want to check my work at home, feel free. I may have made a mistake. It's been known to happen from time to time. Whoa, how did that get up there? That's embarrassing. It's my, to quote Phil Plait, my close personal friend, Adam Savage.
It's trademark.
Yeah. When you watch Mythbusters, what is it that draws you in? For me, it isn't the explosions. I love to watch Adam and Jamie trying to figure things out. Why? Well, I mean, part of it is just I really want to know what the answer is. I'm as excited as they are to be involved in these experiments, to be learning something. I love to watch how excited they are. It's contagious. Being excited about learning is really important. I'm sure that most of you can remember a teacher that you had in high school that was really enthusiastic about his or her subject matter. That's a wonderful thing. And as media expands, these people can rise to the top. Today we have Adam Savage, Jamie Heineman, Phil Plait, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Brian Dunning, Rebecca Watson, Simon Singh, Richard Wiseman, the Novella brothers. The list seems endless. Carl Sagan isn't around anymore. Neither is Richard Feynman. But their legacies live on. We need people to be excited about learning, and about problem solving, and about science. Otherwise our society runs the risk of stagnation. How about one for the road? This is a problem that's fairly well designed to confound computer scientists, and it is my favorite puzzle of all time. You're given 8 weights that are identical in outward appearance. See? Pixel, down to the pixel level they're identical, I made sure of that. One of those weights is slightly heavier than the rest. You have a balanced scale, and contrary to the picture, it's actually evenly weighted. Sorry, it looks nicer that way. You can use the balance scale twice, and you can put any number of weights on each side either time. Given that you have 8 weights, one of them slightly heavier, you can use the balance scale twice. Is it possible to figure out exactly which one of the weights is the heavier one.
Yes.
Yes. Who thinks it is? Who thinks it is not? Interesting. Moving on. So what am I trying to say? What it really comes down to is this. This disease of curiosity against which Augustine railed has led to all the amazing advancements in science and technology of which we avail ourselves on a daily basis. Curiosity is pretty much the best thing ever. It's the best thing our species has going for it, in my opinion. When you spend a lot of time trying to figure things out, sometimes you just won't get them, and that's okay. There have been times when I've literally spent 5 hours trying to solve a simple math problem. Why? It wasn't for a test. It wasn't always for work. Sometimes it just occurred to me that I wanted to figure something out, and I went to it. I tried to find the tools. Sometimes I didn't solve it. Usually, eventually I did. And that feeling is like the best feeling in the world. I'd always rather see somebody try and fail than not try at all. It's a cliche, I know, but you learn more from failure than you do from success. In Last Chance to See, Douglas Adams said, "Human beings who are almost unique in their ability to learn from the experience of others are also remarkable for their apparent disinclination to do so." Let's prove him wrong. Oh, and you should switch. Thanks, guys.